Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the On Mission podcast. On Mission is a podcast that features very inspiring stories of people going above and beyond during these uncertain times. Today, our guest is Dr. Tompkins, who's a psychologist and one of the hosts of Hoarders. And today he's going to share tips on how to deal with our kids, with students that are going through a lot right now, right?
Definitely.
So sit back, relax, get you a pen and a pad, take some notes, and please enjoy this interview with Dr. Tompkins. Hungry Fish Media presents the new podcast On Mission. You know, we are all hungry and eager to help and do what we can during these uncertain times. But there are a few people going above and beyond doing exactly that in these extraordinary set of circumstances. Karen and I thought it would be the perfect time to launch a podcast featuring these amazing individuals and their stories. So friends, welcome to On Mission.
Good morning. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you. Good morning.
This is my wife, Kara. This is Dr. Tompkins.
Nice to meet you. I finally meet you. I know you, but I don't know you.
Yes, exactly. Well, I miss hanging out with Jay, you know. He's one of my faves, you know.
I bet you, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Sure, happy to do it.
I've had the great privilege of working with Dr. T on the A&E hit show Hoarders. He's one of my favorites, to be honest with you. A couple of reasons why I asked you on the show. One, obviously, because you're one of my favorites. And two, just because our kids are dealing with so much right now. So before we jump in, let me just get to some of your credentials. You have a very long list. As a psychologist, you have 30 plus years of experience providing cognitive behavior therapy for anxiety disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, and chronic insomnia, which he kind of helped me with that. I'll talk a little bit about that. He's the co-director and owner of the San Francisco Bay Area Center for Cognitive Therapy. He's an assistant clinical professor at UC Berkeley, adjunct faculty member at the Beck Institute for Cognitive Behavior Therapy, author of 12 books. His latest is 0 to 60, which is available for pre-order right now.
That's correct, yes.
And he helps teach teens how to deal with anger and all of the emotions they're facing. So God bless you, Dr. T. You do so much work.
My pleasure, really. Thank you.
Before we jump in, I just want to let you know that when we get a call sheet for Hoarders and we see your name on it, we literally dance and celebrate.
Yes.
That is, I think, the sweetest thing anyone has ever said to me. So thank you, Jay.
It's true. It is the God's honest truth.
I can vouch for that.
We're excited you're with us. So yeah, our time is limited. So I would say let's focus on really what the kids are dealing with right now. I guess my first question to you, are you currently practicing? Has this pandemic stopped you from practicing?
No, not at all. But it's all telehealth. You know, it's just like this. I use my secure portal, but I'm meeting with everyone this way. And I have to say, while it will have to do for a while, I really do miss actually meeting with people face to face. And I find it actually less exhausting. I find the telehealth option very exhausting, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's just harder because we have to track more, and we're not, when you have someone in your room, you get more information than you do, remote.
Energy is different.
I feel more busy, like with all the different calls and having my kids. Like I'm used to just dropping off at school, not having to like Zoom call this, and then I have meetings and you have meetings, and we're all trying to get around it.
Let me ask you this. Are the teens, the kids, the students that you are currently dealing with, are you seeing different challenges from before COVID-19 to now, or is it just a heightened?
Well, I would say because I'm a psychologist, I typically work with kids who are already having problems. That's not to say that a kid who isn't having problems, something like this could actually kick it up. So But with kids who are really having difficulties adjusting to this, as we all are, I don't see a lot of those kids in my practice. But I do get calls from parents, looking for some advice or some suggestions about how to help their kids through these next months ahead for us.
Well, your book is right on time because we see a lot of 0 to 60.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even last night, one was watching iPad and one was watching TV, and just the way they like asked each other to turn down the volume, it was like, turn it down! Like, yeah. And it was like, normally they would use like, hey, will you please? Like they're not normally like that to each other.
Their patience is a little thin.
Well, I think that's actually a really important point. I mean, it's one of probably the most important points is that, anger can mask all kinds of feelings, and the thing about anger is that when you're a kid and you're angry, people don't like anger. So if you're a kid and you're anxious and you go to your mom and dad and say, I'm really worried, or you go to your mom and dad and say, I'm really sad, you're going to get parents who kind of lean in and are more supportive and caring. If you have a kid who's angry, parents tend to kind of like overreact to that, and perhaps lose sight of the fact that that anger may be masking something else. And I think that's particularly true now for kids in which, some of the pushback behavior and some of the anger can be because they're adjusting and worried and anxious, as I think we all are actually. So one of the things is not to confuse, particularly if you have a kid who hasn't been overly angry in the past, that they start actually showing more anger, to kind of think through and not be alarmed that by this, and think that perhaps there's something else going on for that kid, and to try to open that space to talk with your kid about that.
Wow, that is awesome. A really good point that we haven't really thought about, actually. We do see the anger, and we probably do overreact.
Well, yeah, I think we've seen anger from our older son because our daughter went through cancer treatment, and so our daughter got a lot of attention, and then he didn't. And during treatment, it was really, he was great. He was there, and then now afterwards, he has almost an anger towards it. And I mean, we've talked about it all the time, like where is this coming from, or and then we're like, well, he's playing more video games, and so we don't know, because he went through a lot for a little
bit. So there's probably a couple of different levels going on with him.
Yeah, I mean, during that, he may not have felt like he could express what was going on for him, because he probably was so worried about his sister, and so worried about you too,
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps he didn't feel like it was okay. Perhaps he felt guilty about that, about asking you for support. I think it's really, when something like this is going on, regardless of whether we're talking about, anger or anything else, I think one of the first things is, as a parent, is not to wait for your kids to come to you to tell them what's going on. Really, it's important for us to go to our kids and ask how they're doing. And then to ask questions, tell me about, how you're feeling, tell me what you've heard about COVID. Do you have any questions for me, to be able to go around and ask kids first? Because you don't really know, kids are human beings too, and they're handling a lot. So being more proactive is often helpful.
Those are great tips.
How do you get them off the devices? Because I feel like they're on them more. They're used to
without a doubt.
And
they have more time.
They have more time, and it's almost like we're hiding the devices to earn them back, and we don't even know how to handle it.
It's like one big experiment right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is going on a lot in families right now. One of the things that I really suggest as parents is not, for example, if a number of parents that I consult with, they both work, and they're working from home now. And it's very challenging if you have two parents working in home to coordinate your schedules so that, at least one of you is accessible to the kids, even, when they're being homeschooled, or, it's virtual school room. And that's very challenging. And so one of the things that helps parents is to actually have the kids have more access to screens. So I think during this very difficult time, you don't want to be too hard on yourself as a parent of using that because these are unusual times, unusual circumstances. At the same time, you do want to set limits, and you definitely want to set limits around content, particularly. But being able to set limits about how often they use them, setting up, like you're doing is like, being able to earn points toward use of that, and then have them earn those points for helping out at the house, or those kinds of things that you probably are doing. But you don't really, I think most parents at this particular time are permitting their kids to have more access to video games than they were when the kids were in school, where the kids were naturally limited. So don't be too hard on yourself about that. Try to set some limits.
Yeah, I wonder, because we are pretty hard on ourselves. When it feels like we're failing. To be honest with you, we're not teachers, and it's so difficult. I wonder if our kids are picking up on that of like how we're feeling and dealing with it.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that's a really important point, Jay, is that your kids are our kids look to us as models for any number of things, not only how to conduct ourselves in the world, but how to cope. And so what you really want to be thoughtful about is, modeling, for your kids about what helpful adaptive coping is, and keeping your sense of humor and doing meaningful things and trying to adhere to your routines. I think the main problem, and this is particular when you have preteens or teens, is that when you ask your kids, particularly in these circumstances, to do something, to walk this particular walk, but you're not walking the walk. It's really important that you, whatever that is, that you walk the walk so that your kids can see that. And then when you ask them to walk the walk, you have credibility with your kids because you're doing that. I see that a lot with parents, particularly around smartphones and devices, is that they expect their kids to set limits on their device use, but they have their phone at the dinner table. They might ask their kids not to have their devices at the dinner table, but they have their phone at the dinner table. And it sets up an unhelpful dynamic when a parent is not really modeling the behavior that they want for their kid on a day-to-day basis. And then the kid is, I can assure you, the kid's going to say at some point, well, you have your phone at the table. Why do I have to leave my phone in my room? So I think that's a really important point. Modeling for your kids how to cope.
Okay, so a few things about that modeling. So we during this time especially, we have disagreements between my wife and I, and a lot of times we are frustrated throughout the day. So we shouldn't mask all of that. We should just maybe not do that in front of our kids. Is that?
Well, I think it rather depends. If you kind of have a difference of opinion and you model for your kids how to resolve that, and you move into problem solving.
We need to work on that.
Always.
Most of the time it's my fault, but we need to work on that.
Well, at least he's not. Just kidding.
Yes, exactly. So if you model, it's really, modeling, helpful resolution of conflict, is very powerful for your kids. Or modeling, when something comes up, modeling for them about how you move into problem solving. And, oh, it sounds, oh, let's start with what is the problem here, and then what are some possible solutions to that problem? And you're modeling that for your kid versus solving the problem for your kid. So it depends upon what you're modeling. But if you have trouble resolving conflicts between the two of you, I would take that back channel. I would not actually have your kids observe that, because you're really not modeling something that you want them to do in the future. So rather depends.
Wow. How do you, our son is very social, and it's taking a toll on his social because he used to be the kid that would go, let's go for a bike ride, let's do those things. And now I feel like we're almost having to drag him. And as our daughter, she's very independent. She'll play in the swimming pool by herself. She'll play with her dolls by herself. But our son, he loves connection. What can we do?
And they're 7 and almost 9. So I can't even imagine, like the high schoolers and
yeah. I think this is a major difficulty for many kids, particularly very social kids. I mean, not every kid is very social, there are introverts and there are extroverts. But it's those extroverts, those kids that are extroverts, that really feed off of the social energy that I think are really, really hurting right now. And I think the best one can do is to try to, organize Zoom dates, try to also do more family-oriented activities to the degree you can, more family bike rides. To the degree that you can do, meetups with appropriate social distancing, if that's possible, you could play around with that some. But a kid, particularly a kid who's very active, sitting around at home all day long is just really hard on those kids, and so. You want to be kicking the ball around with them. You want to try to help them discharge some of that energy.
Okay, so let's just say the kid has gone from 0 to 60, and he's at the 60. And I guess it's probably not healthy to remain at 0 all the time, right? You want to.
Right. We all feel angry from time to time.
But once they're at 60. What are some tips that parents can do to help kind of bring them down? And does it differ from situation to situation, or is there general guidelines that?
It really differs from situation to situation and kid to kid. But I would say, one of the things that I could say uniformly is try not to do things that make it worse. So for example, one of the things that happens for parents is that they inadvertently, let's say our assumption is that the anger outbursts the kid is using to get attention, to defocus attention that's being given there and refocus attention on the kid. That if the kid is using anger in that way, it's that you don't want to reinforce it in any way. And so what I would suggest is when a kid is really angry, that's not the time to give the lecture. You don't give the lecture when your kid is angry. What you do is you very quickly pull away, turn away. If you have to, and we're going to assume that the kid is not violent, not aggressive. You don't even look at your child when that child, you kind of turn away and you walk away, and leave your child there to deal with, again, we're assuming that the kid is not acting out aggressively. And then what you try to do is you try to catch them in moments and give them due time in when they're actually calm and cool and perhaps playing with their sibling in the way that you really like. And you go up and you praise them specifically, say, I really love the way you're hanging out with your sister, and it's wonderful. You guys are having a great time. Good job, And then don't overdo it. Just kind of describe the behavior that you're reinforcing, and then you kind of like go your way. But one of the mistakes parents make is that they start talking with their kid when their kid is dysregulated like that. Spending too much time on it, even though what the parents are saying may make perfect sense. It's not the time to be saying it, because if your child wants attention, you are giving your child attention.
You're mad.
Yeah. You're giving your child, if your child wants time, you're giving your child time. And you don't, that's a very common trap parents fall into, where they actually give the anger time. And that, of course, if the kid wants some of your time, then the anger is serving that function.
Wow.
That's great. So good.
Man. Because we do that.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's right. Absolutely, of course. And, it's the important part is not just to pull away, and I mean really pull away and look away and walk away. But don't do it in a huff, just like move in a very neutral way. But the key is that when you see your kid engaged in behaviors that you like, you want to give him time in. Give your kids time in. This is something that's undervalued in our culture, is that the biggest reinforcer or reward you can give your kid is your time. And today, that's so much harder, because we're pulled as parents and as professionals, we're pulled in so many different ways. And so it's a valuable resource. And your kids recognize that. And that when you don't use that resource, then your kids are going to want it and try to get it. And sometimes the way they try to get it is not really all that helpful. It's not their fault. They just want some time.
Wow. I love your inspiration for your book, by the way, the star linebacker.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, the star linebacker, the inspiration for your book. Everyone was telling him to calm down and keep it in control. And the star linebacker, if I'm correct, broke down in tears and asked why. It's because everybody keeps telling him to calm down, but no one has told him how to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's why these tips are so helpful, because kids, especially preteens, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And even teenagers, they need help to learn how to cope. And and they do get those skills from watching how we manage stress. But our stress is different than theirs.
That's right. And I mean, really, it's really interesting is, if your kids are really young and they're dysregulated and frustrated and angry, it's primarily the parent's job to kind of manage that. And then what happens for most of us over time is through modeling and learning, we kind of acquire skills, but nobody ever sat me down and said, this is how you de-escalate conflict. This is how you ask for what you want politely. Nobody sat down and taught me that. I don't know, did they teach you that? But nobody taught me that. So this is how you go about solving a problem. These are the steps. This is how you stand up for yourself in a way that doesn't get you in trouble. Nobody taught me any of that, And then we expect our kids to know how to do that when no one has taught them to do that. And then, and then of course, kids feel very ashamed, I think, when they're not able to actually manage their anger, because they experience a lot of consequences. And often it's very shaming consequences. They're shamed.
Yeah.
And that does nothing to solve an anger problem. Telling the kid you're a bad kid and things like that. And it's partly because people don't like anger. I don't like somebody in my face yelling and screaming at me. But a kid who is angry, struggles with anger, it's often because they just don't know how to be otherwise. There's a whole set of tools that we use to calm ourselves that kids don't necessarily know.
Wow, so good.
Or
So good.
adults. Some
Yeah.
adults.
Or adults. Absolutely. It's very true. And you know, it's like we're talking about modeling, is that in some families, anger is modeled. You know, if you want something, you can't get it until you get angry. You know, that's like how that family works. And so everybody gets angry to kind of get your attention and to get what you want. And of course, you're modeling that for kids. And kids are smart, and they pick up on that, and they think, well, that's how you get what you want. You yell, you yell at the person, or you throw a shoe at the person. That's how you get their attention. But of course, there are other ways.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Real quick, couple of rapid fire questions for you. Got to have a fun segment here. Okay, speaking of hoarders, do you ever lose your temper? I have never seen you lose your temper with any of the crew or the hoarders. Have you ever lost your temper?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I'm finding it's easier not to lose my temper now that I'm older. I think I've mellowed emotionally from when I was young. But yeah, I lose my temper. I mean,
we don't call you Gentle Giant for nothing. I don't think we're going to find you in your car off the set of Hoarders like, oh, like going.
Sorry, no, but,
let's see. Question number 2. Did you team up with Dr. Melva Green to help plan the release of this book? She is a little bit of a clairvoyant, and this is perfect timing for what we're facing right now.
Oh, no, I didn't. What's she doing? Oh, yeah, she's a clairvoyant, right? Well, I don't know. Perhaps she could tell us, when this is going to end. I would like to know that. Maybe check in with her, Jay. Check in with her and tell her ask her when this is going to end, because I'm ready for this to
make
be
that call right after this. Oh, that's so funny. And then let's see, what was the last question? I had a question for you here. Hold on one second, because it was a good one.
Well, while you're looking, could I say something about sleep?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Please.
Sleep. One of the things that I think is happening a lot for kids, but also adults, is that they're having more sleep difficulties. And I think part of it, of course, is the fact that we're all anxious and worried and stressed about what's going on. But there are some other things that are very relevant, which is that if you're, for example, if you're on devices a lot more, if you're doing more Zooms, which most people are, what you're contributing to is a lot of mental arousal, right? And so, and then you take that mental arousal into bed, and then you lay there and you find it's harder for your mind to calm down, for sleep. Yeah. So another thing that happens is as our routines change and we spend more time inside, that influences our biologic clock, our circadian rhythms, right? And particularly like structure, having the same routine and structure feeds into regulating our clock. And then, if you're spending more time in bed awake or you're napping, all of that kind of drains your sleep drive. So one of the things that you really want to pay attention to is sleep. And if you're not sleeping well, then you want to start getting back to doing the things that you were doing when you were sleeping well. And typically, those are more routine, more sunlight. Sunlight really feeds into our clock. And I think all of us are spending more time inside, and we're experiencing less sunlight. And then perhaps if you are finding that it's hard for your mind to calm down, build in kind of a wind down routine. I really would encourage that for kids. Get them off their devices at least an hour before lights out, and then have them in their rooms, and no screens, no TVs, no nothing, because it's not really necessarily as much the blue light as it is the content. So if the content is exciting, if you're watching really exciting movies with your kids and then you send them off to bed, their minds are kind of like turned on. So you set up a wind down routine put them in their rooms, dim the lights. Dim lights start signal to our brains, time to slow down, sleep is coming. So try to build in some more routine and some wind down into your nights, and to kind of help with sleep. Because it's not really, sleep is probably the most sensitive measure of our emotional well-being. If you're not sleeping well, you typically, something's going on. If you're not sleeping well, something is going on. And if you're not sleeping well, then whatever is going on, it's a lot harder for you to cope with it. And so sleep is really important. And one of the things that I've observed is sleep starts to change in situations like this, not just for kids, but for adults too.
That's probably the second biggest thing that's changed with us. Obviously, not the kids not being able to go to school, but our sleeping patterns have definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
We're staying up later, we're sleeping in a little later.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are good tips. So, wow, we got a lot of work to do.
Oh, yes.
We're ready. We're ready. We definitely need to make some of these changes, right?
That'll be nice.
Us and many, many other families out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, I remember the other two questions. One, because
I thought it was two or one.
Two, well, I came up with another one. Okay. So let's see, the third question. Should we be staying up late and sleeping in?
What's more important than how late you stay up and how long you sleep in is how consistent you are. So the lights out time and the get out of bed time, what's most important is consistency. You don't want to have those times moving around because your clock uses, those are like sleep posts, lights out, out of bed time. Your clock, your biological clock uses those posts to set up what the rhythm is. And so if those things are moving around, as well as your routines, then your clock is trying to figure out, is this the time to slow down and prepare for sleep, or is this the time to rev up and get, for work? So, if you're staying up later, like your lights out time is like 11 o'clock or something like that, and then you pushing, your out of bed time earlier, that's fine, so long as you're consistent. So what I would say is, as a family, what you want to do is you want to have some consistency around that. The other problem is, and you see this a lot with kids who have sleeping in, like on weekends, is probably less of an issue these days because kids aren't in the classroom per se. But when they sleep in, and they sleep in for 3 hours, on Saturday, and 3 hours on Sunday past their sleep time, basically what they've done is they've created 3-hour jet lag. So Mondays are brutal because they're having to actually reset as if their mind, as if they have been, in New York, and now they're in Seattle, and they've got to get going.
Wow, that's
so even if you're sleeping in a little bit, try not to sleep in, and this is for your kids as well, longer than an hour past the routine get out of bed time. No more than an hour, not 3 hours. Some kids will catch up, and that affects the clock.
Well, we're getting a lot of freebies, not just us, but everybody watching. We're getting some freebies today. Okay, last question for you. What would you say to the people that are hoarding toilet paper?
Oh, well, I would say to them,
I'm sorry.
I would say to them that there are a lot of things that we hoard, that
He's going to answer.
hoard,
I love it.
but toilet paper is not one of them. And the reason is, particularly in your area, we manufacture hoarding toilet paper in the United States, all right? It's not like we have to order it from overseas, all right? So of all the things that you might hoard, toilet paper would not be high on my list, because, and the reason that it's been difficult to get toilet paper is that people are hoarding toilet paper. So if people just remember that we manufacture it here and therefore we can ship it here, then there's really no need to stock up on it.
Oh,
I think,
yeah. No.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, of all the things that people are hoarding, why toilet paper. It's an interesting question. I'm sure some social psychologists could wax on that, but not me. I don't really know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, before we go, I just want to check in with you. How are you doing through all of this?
We are
You're taking care of a lot of people. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. My wife, who's amazing, she actually works in a children's hospital. She's not a front line. She's like a mental health provider, but she's really been working really hard to make sure that mental health services are available to kids and families, low-income kids and families. So it's been really very stressful for her trying to make sure that the kids and families that her team serve are going to continue to get those services. As a family, we're doing fine. We're trying just coping as best we can. We're fortunate that our oldest daughter was living in New York City, and we were fortunate in being able to get her home before it really, before New York really locked down. So we're feeling very grateful that she was willing to come home. She was not happy about it, I would say, because her life was back east. But she recognized that actually it made a lot of sense. So we're feeling very grateful. And one of the things that I do, in addition to trying to maintain my exercise, is that I try to actually spend some time with gratitude every day. And there are lots of ways to do that. But I think all of us, particularly now, benefit from just spending a little time with gratitude. Because as I tell my wife and I both share, it's like the worst day in my life is better than the best day in millions of people's lives. And I don't ever want to forget that.
Yeah, so true. So true.
Yeah. Well, we are certainly grateful for you, Dr. T.
Yeah.
We love you. I surely miss being out on the road with you.
I do too. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to happen. But
me too. No, our relationship works really well when he travels.
Yeah, exactly.
He misses me,
Yeah, that's right. Absence does make the heart go under. Yes, I'm sure my wife would agree with that as well. All right. But you guys take care.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
so much.
It's been my pleasure. All right.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. What a great episode. Dr. T is one of my favorites, the gentle giant.
He was so good.
So good. So many tips.
We learned so much.
So many tips. We all got a ton of freebies. That would have been hundreds of dollars in therapy costs. So again, thank you, Dr. T,
Priceless.
for all that you do. Truly, truly needed in these uncertain times. So thank you so much. Thank you all for watching this episode and for your continued support. If you haven't done so already, please go to our Facebook page and like it. It's @OnMissionTV. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please help us continue to keep these going. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.